Good afternoon, everyone. My clock is reading 3 p.m. EST, so we're going to go ahead and start this webinar. First off, I would like to welcome you all to the webinar and thank you for your attendance. Today, we're going to be going over timer events and email events and how to use them in your processes. So my name is Summer Becker, and I'm going to start off with an introduction about ProcessMaker as well as timer and email events. And then from there, our training specialist, Pablo Barroso, is going to take you through a demo to show you an example of how to use a timer event and an email event in a fully functional process. So first off, let me start off with a brief introduction of ProcessMaker for those of you newbies out there who have never heard of ProcessMaker or aren't familiar with our interface. So one of the most important features of ProcessMaker is our process designer, as you can see on the screen here. So our process designer features intuitive drag and drop process elements that you can simply drag down from the Shapes toolbar and onto the process map to create full process design in just a few minutes. Our process designer also features BPMN 2.0 compliant process elements that are standardized, that have a standardized functionality and allow you to create and design almost any process in any industry. So once you've got your process design and you get your processes up and running, we also feature Dyna Forms, which are digital forms that end users can use to do almost anything, such as submit an expense report or maybe search through an inventory. One of the cool things about our Dyna Form designer is that it also features a drag and drop designer that allows you to drag and drop text boxes, check boxes, radio buttons, and a wide variety of fields onto your digital forms that also allow you to design processes or design Dyna Forms in just a few minutes. Our Dyna Forms also feature responsive design, which means that they are displayed properly on almost any platform, such as tablets, mobile phones, and desktop computers. We also feature web entry forms that allow users to submit and start cases from an external link that does not require them to log into ProcessMaker. So again, web entry is also a great way to display Dyna Forms or have triggers go off or allow external users who do not have accounts in ProcessMaker to start cases. So after you've also got a few cases up and running, we do offer a variety of reporting tools such as drill down graphs and data reporting tools like you see here. So what our drill down graphs do is they show you maybe a bar graph or a funnel graph or a pie chart of cases in either a user or group's inbox, and then that way it makes it easier to see where cases are bottlenecked, who's responsible, and in what processes or tasks those cases are bottlenecked in. We also feature data reporting tools that allow you to create nice looking graphs directly from our user interface using data from your database tables that are connected to your workspace. So the last thing you can do with ProcessMaker is you can also optimize your processes. So once you've built your processes, got your Dyna Forms, run your processes, and have reported on them, then you can use our Kpi Dashboards, and Kpi stands for Key Performance Indicators, to show you the efficiency of both your processes and employees who are working in ProcessMaker. And that way you can see how efficient your processes are, where you can improve them, and which employees are the most efficient, and it allows you to really set a standard for how to optimize your processes and where to begin. So that wraps up my introduction of ProcessMaker. So let me briefly introduce timer and email events before I allow Pablo to get through his wonderful demo. So first off, timer events pretty much do what the name implies. They start cases automatically at designated intervals. So what that means is you can start cases automatically either every minute or every few minutes, every hour, day, or even set a time in a particular date and time to start a case automatically. We also feature intermediate timer events that can delay processes by the amount of time that you specify. So in the case you need to wait a certain amount of time between two tasks or two elements on your process map, intermediate timer events are a great way to delay your process to wait a certain amount of time to accomplish something else outside of the ProcessMaker interface. And then again, just to summarize, timer events are great for processes that need to be done regularly. So in the case you have a recertification process or an audit process, or you need to check your inventory at a certain time every day or every month, timer events are a great way to get those cases started so you don't forget to do those processes. Now, the second event we're going to show you how to use our email events. So email events allow you to easily send email notifications automatically from your processes. And one of the great things about email events is that the configuration can be done directly from the user interface. So as you see here on the screen, this is what the email event configuration looks like. And so it allows you to set where the email is going to be sent from and which email server will be sending those notifications. It allows you to decide who the email notification is going to be sent to, and it allows you to determine the subject line. Otherwise, you would have to do it from a trigger. So like it shows on this slide, recipients, subject lines, and content can be changed depending on variable values. And you'll get a sneak peek of this during the process, but that's one of the great things is that for every case, you do not have to manually change the recipient or change the subject according to what is going on in the process. ProcessMaker automatically does that for you with process variables. And one of the other cool things you can do with email events is you can set an HTML template to your event to further customize the email notification, and so it's more on brand for your company or more suited towards the purpose of your email notifications. So that wraps up my introduction of ProcessMaker and timer and email events. So now let's get to Pablo's great demo of how to use these events in your processes.
Well, thanks for all, and well, I am glad with this presentation. So we have spoken about both events that we are going to show today is about this is going to be dedicated for timer events and email events. The process that you can see here, I'm going to reduce this zoom. Okay, well, I want to show you all the extension of this process. So what you have here, it is a process that makes possible the counting of inventory. So you're going to explore this part, and the first thing that you find is the check of inventory. Then we go through the selection of these value-added tags. And finally, we are going to value the stock in money, and then we present final declarations in both. We are going to report the quantities. We are going to value them either with VAT or not. So we can declare both quantities and both values with the taxes that we have selected. So this is the main process that I'm using here. Remember this, I'm going to count inventory. But counting inventory is something that I'm going to do on a regular basis. For instance, a month. I can count and value my inventory monthly. And I need to report these values. I need to report these quantities. So I'm posing here two questions, two main necessities. One is that I need to adjust this process in a monthly basis. I need to count each month. And then I need to report all of these values to my managers, to my members of a company or groups of interest. Okay, so we have that. We know clearly what we have to do. So what should I do? ProcessMaker is going to provide us this information, is going to provide these tools for us, because we are going to manage our time events, and report what we need to report, email events. So if you explore, I'm going to explore all these events that you can see here. What I'm trying to show is that here, I'm going to start automatically each month the counting of inventory. And depending on how it works, this process, I'm going to make here a stop. And this stop is going to mean that I need to wait for my process, because another department is going to execute another function. Maybe if we suppose all the conditions that we have in this process, I am valuing my stock. And at this point, what I try to do is that I'm giving a time from another department, and this department is going to provide me this information. And by doing that, then after finishing this task, I'm going to continue. So you can see here, I'm managing my time. I am using my time according to my needs. And then if I need to report the quantities that I require, I'm going to use these email events, okay? So in this case, I'm going to inform that we're executing this inventory operation. And finally here, I'm going to report the quantities with the values. Okay. Now, if I have clear the picture, I know that I need to define the properties for these events. I'm going to start first with the timer events. Remember, we are able to define our time, to configure the time according to our requirements. So, the start timer event, as we know, makes possible the initiation, the start of an action on a regular basis. So you can see here plenty of options. So you can check here, you can click here, and we're going to start based on hourly. Okay, so I can select hourly. It means that each hour I'm going to run this case. And I can start here some entries. So I have all this entire configuration where I can select the start date and the end date. And then I can introduce some minutes to define the intervals of time that I'm going to run this case. It means 1 hour, after another hour, and so on. If I move to the right, I'm going to find a richer set of options. So again, I can define the interval of dates here, the start date and the end date, and then you are going to be capable of defining the hour, and why not, the weekdays. And as long as I go to the rightest of the options, I'm going to see more options that are rich in features. So this is the case of the monthly in the start timer event. I can select an interval of dates here, then define a date, an hour, and a minute, and select the month that I want to configure this timer event. So you can see here hourly, daily, monthly. But what happens if I need to specify a specific date, specific time? Because it's not going to be just cycles that I need to configure. I can configure also a specific time. So time event provides this option where you can select specific date, an hour, and then you're going to start this action, this case, with this start timer event. And finally, we have every. In every, we can specify hours or minutes. And for practical reasons, I'm going to leave it in 1 minute. Okay? It's for the demo reasons. In conclusion, with the start timer event, I'm defining sequences of time, intervals of time to start my cases for this process. Intermediate timer event is easier to configure because you have to bear in mind that you're defining an interval of time where you're going to wait to continue again with your tasks. This interval of time represents in your company maybe the action of another department. In my case, it's the accounting department. They are going to provide me information. And I'm going to define an interval of time where I'm going to wait for that information. So ProcessMaker is going to allow you to define and represent that specific time. So in the first option, I define an amount of time. It can be a day, it can be 2 hours, a minute, as you can see here in the options, or we can specify a specific date. So we have 2 options, and in this final option, you can select a date and then an hour. Again, for demo reasons, I'm going to leave it in 1 minute. So time is configured. Time is not a burden. It's something that you can carry easily and makes easier your life for management. Now we need to report, and this is going to be very important because you see here the email events. I'm going to check first the intermediate email event, and then I'm going to move to the final email events. The intermediate email event makes possible for you to report during the action of a case, okay? So that's why I have inserted it in the middle of 2 tasks, because maybe there is the urgency that you need to report something. So you are going to use this intermediate email event. So you can see here that in this part, you can define from which account, from which email you want to send this notification. And then here you can include a set of accounts, in this case, using my account for demo reasons. So you can select the emails of the people who are going to be interested in this notification. Finally, you can define here in the header the subject. And this subject can be customized by using some of the features like here, the variable picker. So I can specify, for instance, the stock date, okay? I have already specified this part. So in this case, this is going to make possible for you to personalize this message. Then we move to the content, and in the content, as you can see, you can find here an HTML code, okay? So what brings this? If you know better all these language, all these front-end experience, you're going to customize your messages. So it's going to be easier for you to personalize your content, and then we're going to see this flexibility of adjusting all these design for your company. Email events, the end email events, work in the same way because it makes easier the configuration. We try to make it more handleable in the way that you can use, again, the same patterns that you have seen in the intermediate email event. But let's see something that is very interesting. If I'm going to, for instance, I'm going to raising content, and then maybe one day I found that I have a template where I can upload this content here. So you can just click on this button and choose the file and choose this template. You open here, you upload the file, and okay, you have the content ready to be sent. Time definition, communication, everything with our events. Both are going to be ready to be executed for this demo. Okay, I have already 2 processes here, and I want to show you how it works. I'm going to start first with this case, the second case in the line, and well, what I try to do, I'm going to show you here my process. I'm going to move to my process to indicate you where I am. In this case, in this one that I'm selecting here, I am specifically here. I have passed through this intermediate timer event, and then you're going to see this part, the email event, okay? So if I go here and open this case, okay, I'm going to have here an output document from this user task, and well, I'm going to move again to the next. I'm going to finish the case directly to show you the email event. So I'm going to click on next and finish. Okay, this end email event is going to send me an email, and I'm going to show you right now. Okay, let me show you. This is the email event that I have sent. This is, you can see here, all the characteristics. So I have used my HTML, and this is going to be adapted according to the configuration that we have input, and then you're going to see all this entire text as you can see here. Okay, so let me remember that some of the variables that we have added here, okay, were replaced with the values that we have obtained from the process. Now I'm going to show you this other case, the end and the email event, intermediate email event, and I'm going to run it. But let me remember that I am in this task, this one, the check inventory. Okay, now I'm going to start with this case, okay, and I'm going to look to the map, and I am here. I want to see what happens with this intermediate email event. So I'm going to click on here. You can add some information like return Bell, and then this is going to be William Sark. I'm going to add some value tags, add the date, and finally I can declare stock of 90,000. Okay, I'm going to submit. Let me remember that if I pass through this intermediate email event, I'm going to receive an email again. So I'm going to submit this, go again. Okay, I have received an email. I'm going to stop here. And okay, I want to show you the message. Oh, excuse me. Okay, this is the other message that I want to show you. Okay, this is the message that I want to show you. This contact was configured in the intermediate email event. So we are communicating during the running of the cases. So intermediate email events are going to allow me this communication. They're going to facilitate this easiness, okay? And then if I go here in the map, you know that I have run 2 cases and they were run using these 2 timer events. Well, this was automatically generated, the first one, the second one that I have shown you. And in the case of the first case, okay, I have used this one to continue with this task and finally see the stock value, okay? So both timer event and email events are going to make easier the way you are going to design your process. You're going to reflect the reality and create a workflow simplified. Thanks for all.
Okay, thank you, Pablo, for that great demo. So now what I would like you to do, if you have any questions about timer events or email events, please use the question functionality in the GoToWebinar panel to submit any questions you have about what we've presented today. And while you guys are submitting your questions, I would like to tell you guys about our upcoming webinars. So on September 25th, we have our first webinar in the series about database integrations. And this first webinar is going to be how to connect ProcessMaker to an Oracle database. So that's going to be Tuesday, September 25th at 11 a.m. New York time. And then our second webinar is about how to connect ProcessMaker to PostgreSQL databases. And that's going to be on Tuesday, October 23rd at 1 p.m. New York time. And our last webinar in the series about database integrations will be how to connect ProcessMaker to your Microsoft SQL Server database. And that last one's going to be on Wednesday, November 21st at 1 p.m. New York time. So if any of these webinars interest you, please register at the link at the bottom. So again, please submit your questions now about email events and timer events, and we will get to those as soon as you submit them. So we've got our first question, and it reads, are these events available in the community edition?
Well, these events are available, are benefits of our enterprise version.
So our second question reads, hi, I have a question about timer events. Does the timer event only create a new task, but does it execute the task or any trigger? Is that right? So basically, do timer events automatically start tasks or triggers or not? Pablo?
Well, start timer events are going to start a case. And actually, when you start a case, you start the first task of a process.
Okay, so our next question reads, how can I send forms out of ProcessMaker?
Well, I suggest that you can use Actions by email. It is a feature where you can send some attachments through email.
So our next question reads, what if I'm not familiar with HTML? How can I configure email events?
Okay, you can use plain text for configuring your content of your email events. But actually, you can also explore that out ways. You can use some wizards for HTML, and okay, there are plenty of things. But if you don't know HTML, you can use plain text. It's another option.
Okay, and then our last question reads, what would be a common use case for an intermediate timer event?
Okay, I'm going to answer these. Think about this. I have shown you the stock inventory as a demo here, and I have inserted that intermediate timer event. Why? Because maybe if we suppose that case, that time is going to represent the time that I spent, or the time that the company spends, from an action outside of the process, because the process that we use is just for stock inventory. Maybe you need an action from the legal department, accounting department. You don't have the responsibility for that because it's not in your functions, okay? So in your process, you need to represent, you need to reflect that time spent by another department. For instance, the accounting department is going to bring you the value of the stock in 24 hours. So that's why you need to use 24 hours configured in our intermediate email event. You represent time, you reflect reality, and you're going to define that time, and it's going to notice you or inform you that this process needs to be continued after the reception and after the time is defined. Okay? Just that.
Okay, so I think that wraps up our question and answer session. Again, I would like to thank all of you for attending this webinar. I hope to see you guys for our next webinar on Tuesday, September 25th. Otherwise, thank you for your time. I hope to see you again.